So we have to use a 1991 and up Sportster style starter motor. This one is a new one from All Balls. You can find factory takeoffs that'll work fine. Don't buy a super cheap one. The starter drive won't hold up. So either a used factory or a good quality starter motor. And you may want to bench test it because we're going to have to do a little clearancing on it, and if it doesn't work, they're not going to take it back if you modify it. If we put it in here, we're going to find the cavity where it sits there, the counter bore, and you're going to feel that it's not pulled up tight. You're going to feel and see that it's not pulled up tight. It's got to be free and pull up perfectly because of the fine threaded fasteners that are provided with the kit. And again, we won't put any Loctite on these until final assembly. And I'll tell you right now, this bolt is behind your clutch cable, so you're going to have to deal with your sequence of assembly. But the first thing here is to get this to pull up nice and evenly. And if you take a flashlight, you're going to get in here and see the points of interference. But I can tell you that it's right here near where this sticker is. I'm not even sure what that is, but we've got to grind away some of this aluminum because it's going to catch on the backside of the casting in here where one of the transmission studs was. So let's attack that first because if we remove that, we can see we want to get the worst offender first, because this plug generally interferes. That's your trigger, and it lays right in here behind your ratchet or jockey top. Right in here, and it's going to interfere unless you carve it down some. I have seen a case where we had clearance there. So again, let's get this first, then we'll see what we have to do with this. I'm going to use a abrasive disc on this. When I do shape this, I usually use a Dremel with a little cutoff wheel on it and start carving away. So I'm going to do what I have to do. Sometimes we have to do a little bit back here as well. And I'll get that done and then we'll come back. Here we have the starter motor securely fastened to the right side electric start casting with the two 3/8 fine thread fasteners. The starter motor required clearance at the 3 spots that you see here. It'll look something like this. Very hard to see the tight spots. Patience and precision. And I'll tell you, this one was a pain in the butt. They don't seem to be consistent with the position of the holes in the different starter motors that I've installed. And this even required a little rat tail file on the aluminum of the casting to move the bolts a little bit to line up with the holes. Not very much, but enough that if you don't correct it, you'll cross thread these fine thread bolts and you will have a problem. So again, patience and precision, clearancing a little bit at a time, using some Sharpie to see if you have interference, painting up a surface and bolting up the starter the best you can to see where the interference is. In the end, I'm going to use a little silicone insulation between the trigger terminal and the case. Very tight. And I've checked the clearance at these 2 spots marked in red with a business card to be sure we have at least a business card thickness of clearance when we're finished. The trigger terminal has been modified to clear Again, this varies as to the extent of the modification, and we will coat that surface of the transmission lid with some silicone for extra insulation. We've put the oil tank mount in place to ensure that the oil tank will clearance the top of the starter motor, and you can see that that is tight. As a matter of fact, on the rigids, expect that terminal to come up into a hole in the base of the oil tank, and a little padding will be necessary to raise the battery. This battery cable is already connected, not tightened, but I wanted to show you that you should have the battery cable connected to the motor at all times. You will not be able to access that connection with a wrench. It's very difficult when the oil tank is installed. Last but not least, that socket head cap screw that attaches the starter that's under the gear. It must not be proud of the aluminum surface. It must be sunk as the gear face runs right against the aluminum.